Hi, everybody. Welcome to this third day of the eco-printing in the Dirty Pot bootcamp. I hope you're really enjoying things as much as I am. I suspect it's not as much work for you as it is for me behind the scenes. And I'm very, very happy that I have Shauna here helping me. So I'd just like everybody to welcome Shauna again. I'm going to add her to the stream in 1 second. And Shauna will be taking care of comments and highlighting what I need to look at, etc., during the live stream. And Shauna actually will be commenting, but my name will be coming up. So it's not me typing and chatting to you, it's Shauna. So here we go.
Hello, everyone. How are we all?
Where are you joining us from this evening, Shauna?
I'm down in the Algarve, down in Portugal. It's lovely and hot here.
Very nice, but I think it's as hot in Ireland as it is in Portugal. So look, thanks so much, Shauna, for everything you're doing. I'm going to remove you from the stream and I'm going to get going.
Perfect. Chat to you soon.
Okay. So if this is your first time joining in for one of my videos, my name is Nicola Brown. I'm a textile artist trying to develop as sustainable a practice as I can here in rural Southeast Ireland. And what I do is primarily all about wet felting, about eco-printing in the dirty pot without traditional powdered mordants, and it's about growing and foraging for eco-printing plants and natural dye plants. So that's me, but if you'd like to drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from, that would be great. Shauna will be collating all the different parts of the world later on, and we hope to get a map together so that we can see how many people came from all the different continents. So that will be kind of a bit of fun. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question, just to keep things under control and so I don't get distracted, there will be certain natural pauses within my presentation of information today. So I will then ask you to drop your question into the comments and Shauna will highlight them for me. So it may be that some of what I am saying is going to answer the question that you might have at this very minute. So if you just wait, I would appreciate it. And then when you do ask your question, put 3 question marks in front of the question and 3 after the question. And that means that Shauna can find them very easily as well, and then alert me to the fact that they are there. So on day 1 of this free 3-day intensive eco-printing bootcamp, I covered all the foundations of eco-printing in the dirty pot without using traditional powdered mordants. Now, I know that we have a very mixed group of people following along, and everybody is very welcome, whether you are a total beginner to this process, whether you come from an eco-printing background where you've used mordants, or whether you're a felt maker and interested maybe in exploring the potential of using leaves, bark, and onion skins to print on your fabric. Everybody is very welcome, and video from day 1, if you haven't already watched it, will give you all the foundations of how to set up your pot, what to put in your pot. I have been getting quite a few emails and questions about people saying, oh, I've got such and such in my garden, I have this, can I put this into the pot? And without being a dictator, I would like to say no. Follow exactly what I suggest in video 1 for setting up your pot, and you won't be disappointed with your results. As soon as you add any other vegetation aside from eucalyptus or onion skins into your dirty pot, all bets are off. I have had horrendous results when I've tried with other vegetation. So I'm giving you the benefit of my experience. We're adults. You can choose to ignore me if you want to. So day 1 really was about setting up the dirty pot, the foundations of everything. And I shared about eco-printing on protein-based fabric. So protein-based fabric comes from an animal. That would be wool, silk, cashmere, yak, quivet. And quivet is very expensive because the hair is actually plucked from the animal rather than shorn. So any protein-based fiber, you can set up your dirty pot and you can get eco printing immediately. Then on day 2, I discussed rust water. I showed you how to prepare your own homemade rust water, and that's really fantastic. It's one way of eco printing on cellulose fabric. And cellulose fabric comes from a plant. So something like linen, what I'm wearing is linen. So something like linen, cotton, hemp. I'm not mentioning that word because I don't want to get a strike from YouTube, and please don't write it in the comments. But all those fabrics, plus fabrics that are made from wood pulp, such as bamboo, tencel, you may have heard of lyocell. All those fabrics can really successfully be eco-printed using rust water, but you get a limited range of colors, primarily dark, inky blacks and purples, some redder colors from eucalyptus. But when you're printing on cellulose fabric without a mordant, the range of colors is different. And actually, I am wearing linen myself right now, but this here is done slightly differently. This was done, I work with some tannin and iron reactions, and I share that in the EcoPrint and Wet Felt Club. So that's something you can get different colors, but you need to do more, and it's not for this workshop. So I'm thrilled to see Sean is flicking names up on screen there with different places. Fantastic to see that we really do have a worldwide audience here. So that's wonderful. And now today, I'm just going to pop up on the screen what I'm going to be covering today. So I'm going to be chatting about eco-printing upcycled clothing. I'm also going to chat briefly about, what to look for when you're looking for clothing to print, or if you're going thrift store shopping, I'm going to give you a few suggestions for things that you might be able to pick up for your practice, not just for eco-printing. The techniques that I share for printing clothing, they also follow through for sculptural felt, but I've actually got a few little video clips and slides today. So you're going to see from start to finish, you're going to see me, let me just flash this one up. You're going to see me printing that piece from start to finish, just with some short little video clips. But also I'm going to share some slides of eco-printing a felt bag, just so you can see you can apply the same sort of principles to the structural and sculptural felt that you do to the clothing. And then I'm also going to give you some tips about printing to sew, because there are, well, I'll give you the tips. And then I think I'd like to kick off by just sharing a little clip with my friend Caroline Nixon. For those of you who joined me on day 1, I mentioned that I was going to, Caroline was just going to chat about one of the tops that she has, and it's going to be in her words, but this particular top is made from an upcycled blanket, an old wool blanket, and Caroline really enhances what she does with stitch. So I am just going to share this short little video clip now, just to get you in the mood for eco printing on either fabric, which she did in this case, or clothing. That you really enjoy doing, Caroline, and that you will be facilitating a workshop with the EcoPrint and Wet Felt Club members, is you really love stitching onto your pieces. And I'm going to share an absolutely gorgeous photo of Caroline's now. And this is of a wonderful top. You might like to explain a little bit about this piece, Caroline, and then we look at a close-up of some of your stitching.
Yeah, so this started life as one of those old-fashioned wool Whitney blankets. It was putting in the washing machine and it was given quite a harsh wash, which I often do when I'm printing on blankets, because I feel that it flattens some of the fluffiness and just shrinks it down a little bit and almost sort of felts it slightly. And I find that's a better base to print on. Then I cut it roughly into rectangles, roughly the size of the pieces that I wanted to print, printed it in the dirty pot, and then I assembled most of it. It's a very simple pattern. As you can see, the pattern is basically based on rectangles. And I assembled it, and then I embellished a few areas with hand stitch. You'll also notice that the fold I did was on the diagonal. It wasn't actually a mirror image straight down the middle. That's the close-up of the shoulder, where I've just put a little bit of hand stitching. So sometimes less is more with the stitching. If you've got a good print, you maybe detract from it if you try and put stitching on top of it. So I think you need to really consider where stitching will actually enhance the piece.
I think that's a really good point, because it's the same with vegetation. There is a lot of vegetation on this piece, but you're a master at blending the different colors. These are all eucalyptus leaves. And as you say, by folding on the diagonal, you've got added interest with those lines where the ties were. It's really beautiful, Caroline, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. So as you can see, Caroline has a real eye for design and for adding that little bit of extra stitch to pieces. And a question that came in via email this evening to me was from somebody who was able to find op shop or thrift store woolen blankets, but sometimes they would have holes in them. And she was wondering about, would she buy them or not? And she's not good at stitching. So actually, wool in general, woolen blankets, I would say absolutely, if you give them a good wash in the washing machine before you print them. Caroline said she actually does hers on quite a hot wash sometimes. I usually just use a 30 or 40 degree wash, but you'll find that the blankets won't really fray when you cut them. So at least that's my experience. So in fact, you don't even need to edge them, and you can really make a feature out of holes. There is an absolutely wonderful textile artist called Anne Smith, and Anne has participated in many online events and things with me. And she does the most incredible embellishing of pieces, and she would never let a hole or a series of holes in a garment stop her. She is good at stitching, but she would just highlight areas. So she's really, really good at finding pieces that can be really reloved and reused. And I think that's a very important part of a sustainable practice. In fact, what I'm wearing, this top that I made, it's one of the first ever pieces I sewed. Sewing is not it's not something that came naturally to me ever. But this top is made from vintage French linen, actually French linen that Caroline, we were both in France on a trip, and I bought on a trip with Caroline. And after the boot camp ends, if you haven't actually registered for the boot camp, if you happen just to be watching, you know, live, you've come to this, or watching on the replay from somewhere else, consider clicking the link in the video description below. And about a week after this the live streams end, the boot camp and the membership launch week ends, I'm going to be sending a little thank you surprise to everybody who has registered. And I'm also going to be sharing details of Caroline's website and her work and her workshops. I'll put the links in for that, into that as well. So just if anybody's interested in looking Caroline up, and I'll put the link to her website in the video description as well. So I'd like to say a big thank you to her for joining me and sharing her experiences on the first day and also today. So I'm going to discuss first about upcycling clothing or getting things to print. So I cannot tell you how many times I get asked, oh, or told, you're very lucky you can get good things in Ireland. Oh, I don't know, there are no garments in silk or wool or cashmere near me. Honestly, you just have to haunt shops. I get many of the items, the garments that I would eco-print. I could be driving along, I could be in another country, and I'll see a shop and I stop. And so I recommend that you Ask friends, are they clearing their wardrobe? That you look in your own wardrobe, because often there could be garments that you're not wearing or you haven't worn for years, and you might just be able to update them in a matter of a day and have a new outfit that you are really happy to wear. Look in op shops or thrift stores or charity shops. Go to markets, car boot sales, garage sales, antique shops. You honestly just never, ever know where you are going to get something. And I would urge you to look for items that are wool, silk, cashmere, linen, old blankets. Look for nice leather belts, because they can make wonderful shoulder straps for felt bags, or you might make a bag from some fabric from a woolen blanket, and belts can be really, really handy. Look for sheets, and you might think, oh, I don't want to get a sheet from an op shop. But if you take eco-printing further and you decide that you would like to do tannin and iron reactions, for example, you're going to need something to use with the iron, and old sheets are really fantastic for that. They're also great if they're in good condition and you print them and you can just hang them somewhere decoratively. You would be surprised. Curtains, fish kettle. So a fish kettle is something, it's something for processing fish. It's a really fantastic pot. So it's long and thin. So if you can't find a big round aluminium pot, a fish kettle is really fantastic, because you can get long bundles in. You can't get as many bundles, but they're really, really good. Then look for aluminium pots. And the list goes on and on of things in the op shops that you could find. And if you find a shop that appears to have a good range of things, I found an excellent one about an hour and a half drive from me here in Ireland. And I gave them my name and my phone number, and I explained what I was looking for. And they actually contacted me several times because they had been doing some house clearances or people were donating them things. And I got some wonderful Irish linen. Some of it was just plain white and some of it was white embroidery on white. So don't be afraid to leave your name and number with a shop, and hopefully they might contact you. So a good tip, because sometimes people don't know what fabric feels like. I'm always looking to, well, I can usually feel it in the tips of my finger, but I am looking to see if it says dry clean only. That's a really good indication that that's going to be something good to eco print 99.9% of the time. If it's dry clean only, it's probably wool and it's or silk or cashmere. Go for it, just buy it and don't be afraid to spend money on it. Then look for pieces with really interesting detail. I printed a beautiful Devore silk dress that was sequined and beaded, and it looked absolutely marvelous. The lining was not silk, it was polyester, I think. But if I have something like that and it's a combination, what I actually do, if I'm not sure or if it's a difficult shape, I will print with only onion skins. And that dress was absolutely beautiful. And one note of caution, just be careful if you are going to print something and you've got mother of pearl or ivory. Well, you wouldn't really have ivory, but mother of pearl buttons, they can actually dissolve in vinegar. So I would not soak them overnight in a vinegar water solution. I would soak them overnight in water, and then I would just sprinkle vinegar onto the garment before I printed it. That seems to be fine. Now, of course, if you enjoy sewing and you don't mind taking the buttons off and sewing them on again, that's okay as well. And by the way, if you're getting value already from the from what I'm sharing, feel free to subscribe to the channel or hit the like button. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. And that is that one. And now I'm going to suggest here that when you start working with garments that you are upcycling, start with a simple shape. Don't try and roll up the most complicated piece first. Don't try and be really precise with everything, because you're going to get into a tiz and you're going to stress yourselves. So something really simple, a sleeveless top is a fantastic thing to start with. And something to look out for, to be careful of, that you may not see until you actually print the piece. If whoever owned the garment before, if there had been maybe some deodorant or underarm stains on the garment that weren't obvious after you'd washed it and prepared it, etc., etc., onion skins will mask it, because onion skins have that golden yellow color, but sometimes underarm stains on a garment look a little bit yellow. So that is something just to be aware of. I would always buy clothes that were in really good condition. I've no problem wearing secondhand clothes myself. In fact, I love doing it, but just be aware of that. Or if there had maybe been a coffee stain on something, it might look, that area might look a little bit darker afterwards, because there could still be some dye from the coffee impregnated in the fabric that you mightn't see, but the eco printing process will bring that to the foreground. So that is just something to consider. But also consider, many people get rid of garments because they have a small stain. And that's actually where eco-printing really comes into its own. Like if you had some wine or something down, you know, spilt some wine on a garment or some coffee or something, I would have no problem eco-printing that. And I would just make sure to put good vegetation in that area, and you will totally mask any stains. It's also fun to upcycle your own garments every year, just to change your wardrobe around. And try and plan where you'd like your tie marks to be to complement your garment. That takes practice. So a tip that I have for you in relation to that is, if you just get a piece of paper and you cut or tear the paper into the shape of your garment, you can have it as a flat piece of paper. Let's just say this is my garment here. I can then fold this, and I can, that's not going to show it to you very well, is it? Hang on one second. Okay, so I would get, let's say this is a very boxy top and this is the neck up here. I would cut this piece of paper into the shape that I wanted, roughly. And we'll just say there is a neck up here. So I might decide I wanted to have my tie marks where the neck is. So if that's the case, I actually need to put the neck and that side of the fabric face down on the table. And then I will lay my leaves here, and then I will roll it up towards the top. And then the neck is on the outside of the bundle. So it's going to get all that dark color from the pot, and it's going to have the tie marks. Now, I urge you not to stress about this when you start eco-printing clothing. Just enjoy the process and have fun, and don't worry. But it is important to tie everything really tightly, and very helpful to use either a copper or a rusty metal pipe or a cast iron pipe to give modification of color. Again, you're going to see me going from start to finish with a garment. And finally, don't be afraid to print color pieces as well. I think I did mention that yesterday. I shared an image of a linen shirt that was a pale blue, and I eco-printed it with the leaves from Rose Bay Willow Herb. And that was the other thing I discussed in video 2, a good bit about vegetation, about suggested vegetation and how to store and save that. So, okay. So I think what I'm going to do now is, I think I will share a short little video clip of me laying out a long-sleeved woolen vest. It was one of my own woolen vests, and it shrank a little bit in the machine. So in fact, I decided to eco-print it and then maybe use it as the top part of something else, but I haven't got any further. So I'm going to just share that little bit Then I'm going to discuss eco-printing to sew, and then I'm going to show the reveal of the garment. So I'm just wondering, before I start sharing that video, are there any questions for me? I'll just pop over. So I do see a question here from Annie, and this is a very good question. So she says, fish kettles are shallow, so no room for vegetation. Can I just use the liquid from the main dirty pot? Absolutely, Annie, you can. And I do. The thing with a fish kettle, the bigger you can get it, the better. And they're really fantastic. You can put long bundles in them. I really love my fish kettles because I like being mindful. I don't want to rush through the process of laying out the vegetation and bundling. I want to enjoy it. And I think that if I take my time, most of the time, the prints are better, but we all have disasters. So I'm not free from disasters either, but don't panic, you can overprint. So the fish kettle is great because I might make 3 bundles in a morning session, put them on to boil. You do need to make sure that you top the fish kettle up regularly. And then I will bundle 3 more pieces. And by the time I have the next 3 bundled, the first ones are ready to come out, etc., etc. So that is... that's just a note about fish kettles. Okay, I'm going to scroll down here. Sorry. For some reason, just give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I can see the comments that Shauna is highlighting, but I cannot see. They're not, yesterday they came all together. Okay, so can you use rainwater? Absolutely, Karen. Yes, and I do as well. I harvest all the rainwater from my studio roof. So yes, you can use rainwater. I think that's excellent. So now we have a question. Do you know about printing on pashmina? The pashmina, if it is actually pashmina, a proper pashmina and not an artificial fabric that people are selling as pashmina, that will take the prints beautifully, Margaret. So I would say just go for that. I'm just scrolling down here. So, Margaret, my whole ethos is not to use traditional powdered mordants unless absolutely necessary. And as I said at the beginning of video 1, I'm not against powdered mordants per se, but I choose to work in a more environmentally mindful and health conscious way myself. So I try and omit them from my practice. And if you add copper sulfate powder to your water, that's not a dirty it's not a dirty pot that I would be using. And I think you're going to be disappointed with the results that you get. But we are all adults. And for people, I don't want people to think I'm a dictator. I am very firm about the information I give you that I know will give you good results. But from then on, it's up to you whether you choose to take it or not. But I would say absolutely not. It wouldn't be something I would do myself. Here's a question. Absolutely. Bandages can be used for wrapping your bundles instead of ties, but you then don't have the beauty of the stripes where the tie marks were. And I like playing around with those tie marks. But a good time to use the bandages would be if you were eco-printing trousers, for example. It can be difficult. You can often, if you're not careful, the crotch area of trousers sticks out a bit and that can get darker, which obviously doesn't look attractive. So that can be something to consider, and bandages are great for that. And okay, I'm just going to answer this question just because it's here, but no questions, please, about natural dyes from now on, if you don't mind, because I really need to concentrate on what this is about. If you have weld growing wide, Deborah, I am so envious of you because I had beautiful weld and now I don't have any. It just didn't come back on year 2, strangely enough. So it's wonderful, but you need to use traditional powdered mordants to dye with weld, and that's not what this is about. But yes, weld is a beautiful natural dye. So I would definitely harvest it and keep it and make sure you mordant your fabric. And then you can eco print on top of the fabric that you have dyed with the weld, and you will get different colors. So that's what I recommend you do. So Lisa has a question about leaving the iron in. I leave my iron in the pot all the time, Lisa, while it is processing, unless I feel that the color is getting really too dark for whatever the piece I'm printing. But my personal preference is strong and dramatic colors, so I rarely take my iron out. But that is something that you need to get familiar with and then learn what you personally like and don't like. And then suggestions for printing on dark wool or linen, forget it, would be my suggestion. Or if it's fabric, like, I don't want to sound too flippant about that, but unless you have leaves such as Eucalyptus cordata that have a really, really, really incredible amount of natural dye in every leaf, I would say you're going to get absolutely nothing whatsoever. No prints, so there's no point. But you could use that fabric to combine it with eco-printed fabric, and you could assemble a new garment or something afterwards, which would be wonderful. Okay, here is another question. Is there any way to eco-print without using energy or heat? No, not with what I do. Heat and longer processing time is it's how the color is fixed into the fabric. So I'm afraid there isn't. There are other forms of dyeing, solar dyeing and different things like that that don't use heat. You can replace the pot with a microwave, which is something I'll be sharing in the EcoPrint and Felt Club, in the future. And that uses a lot less energy. But no, with what I do in the dirty pot, you need to have heat, I'm afraid. I'm just going to scroll down and see there's a few more questions. I'm going to ask you to stop asking questions now, so I can just finish answering these, and then I want to share some videos. So in Mexico, we can only get white or red onions. How will that affect a dirty pot? I have had no results from white onions, but the red onion skin, perfect. And if you live in Mexico, I didn't say it yesterday, but the achiote seeds, that's the red seed that gives red food coloring, and you can buy the seeds in Mexican grocery stores. They eco-print beautifully. They give the hottest red and orange colors, and you can use them more than once. So if you go to the grocery store and get some annatto or achiote seed, you're in business. Okay. So here Walter is saying, I have made some wet felted pieces. Will I have to dry it to eco-print, or can I felt? Okay. It's so much better just to go straight from the felting to the eco printing. So I would recommend that you just review that section on video day 1, because I say that you need to soak your fabric overnight in water before you print it. So when I wet felt, if I'm going to eco print on the same day, which is never, I would just go straight ahead after I had washed all the soap out. I would squeeze it so it wasn't very wet, and I would sprinkle it with vinegar, and I would go ahead and wrap it with the vegetation. But if I was going to print in 1, 2, or even 3 days, I would just put it straight into a bucket of water. I wouldn't dry it. The thing with felt is once it dries, it takes quite a long time to absorb the water again. For that reason, if you have dry felt that you want to eco print, I recommend that you soak it overnight, but you start it in hot water and it will be better. Okay, so I'm just going to come down. Sherry has a question which you're going to see in the video, Sherry. Sherry is asking, she wants to know about, printing a t-shirt. She understands the tie marks, but how do you get the vegetation on the underside? Sherry, I'm going to share a video in just 1 minute and you will see that. So thank you for asking that. Okay, I'm just coming down. Here's another question. If you add alum to the pot, for me, no, it's not. I don't add powdered mordants to the dirty pot. No, there's no, I won't say there's no point, but it's not something that I do. Usually you mordant fabric. If you add mordants, if you add alum to the pot and you've already got dirty pot liquid in it, the color of the pot liquid is more likely to adhere to the alum and not onto your fabric. Normally you mordant fabric and you put the fabric in the dirty pot, or if that's what you want to do, if you choose to use mordants. But I wouldn't add alum into the dirty pot. So if you want to use alum, mordant your fabric and then put mordanted fabric in the dirty pot. Juliet is asking, I'm sorry, Juliet, this shirt that I'm wearing, this is, there's a reaction here with tannin and iron. In fact, this was myrobalan was the tannin, but that's not a topic for this. That's something that I share only within the EcoPrint and Wet Felt Club. Okay, and this is the last comment I'm going to answer now. So Diana has a question. A very good question, because there are over 900 varieties of eucalyptus, Diana, and no, they do not all print the same. However, all eucalyptus leaves, bark, and twigs do release natural dye, but they may not give you such good colors eco-printing. So I have a eucalyptus video and it shares some of my favorite eucalyptus leaves to print with. So I would recommend, Diana, that you watch that later on or whenever you have time. And you just make a note of those varieties, and you can actually fill out a form, or you can click on something in the video description and you can receive a free PDF with that information. And the thing about it is, many of us want to get red prints from eucalyptus leaves. Those are the ones, they don't all give red prints. Most eucalyptus will give different prints, brown, beige, some give green. But often they need 4 to 5 hours to really release the best dye. And that's why I wrote that little PDF and I did the video, so that you can see which eucalyptus give you good color in a short period of time. Okay, so you're very welcome. And Karen has a question. Karen, I'm going to ask that in future, when you ask a question, can everybody put question marks, 3 question marks in front of your question and 3 afterwards, because otherwise Sean is not going to be able to see them, please. So I'm just going to go back there and pop Karen's up again. So 3 question marks in front and behind, and that way you will get your question answered. So Karen, I don't do any discharging whatsoever. So I highly recommend Caroline Nixon is the person who you would do a workshop with if you're interested in discharging. And I've never done it. That doesn't mean that you can't try doing it, but it's certainly not something that I have done. And Jan is asking about, sorry, one second. Jan is asking about walnut. I don't get good results here with walnut, Jan, in Ireland, so I haven't got the experience. The hotter the climate, the better the results from walnut. That's my experience. I have got good results when I'm doing tannin and iron reactions with walnut, and also then over dyeing it with organic indigo. Walnut is beautiful for that, but the walnut, I don't get good results from it here in Ireland. Okay, so so there's one other question coming up, and that's it. So and I'm going to stop looking at them then, because I really want to move on. So Anna is saying when she translates vinegar, she gets 2 products. It is the vinegar that you would buy to make a vinaigrette. You are absolutely correct, Anna. It's a red wine, an apple cider, any vinegar, a malt vinegar that you would put on fish and chips. So that's it in relation to me answering questions now, because I want to move back into my presentation. But when I invite them again, please put question marks in front and behind, and then Shona can pick them up. So I am going to share a little video clip. I'm going to talk over the clip. Give me 1 second, please. And this video clip is me laying out sycamore leaves, Acer pseudoplatanus. I mentioned them yesterday. It's called sycamore maple in America. So just don't be confused about what the tree is. But yesterday I discussed vegetation and it was written there yesterday. And don't forget, if you register for the bootcamp, I will be sending a thank you with some free information afterwards about some of the things I've talked about. So do register and you'll be on my newsletter for future events too. And the link to that's in the video description below. So here goes. I am wrapping up a wool shirt of my own. This had been worn multiple times, and I put it in the machine, my washing machine, by mistake on a very hot wash, and it had got a little bit smaller. So I decided I would eco print it. So it had a really good wash in olive oil soap. It had a sprinkle with vinegar, and here I am adding sycamore leaves to the top. So I'm making a symmetrical design on the front of this piece. So it's got sleeves. I could choose to put a leaf in that neck area, but I'm not going to. There's enough going on here. And I just very carefully lift that other side over, that other half. And I try not to shift the leaves. I don't stress too much, but I really want to get the arms even and, you know, the underarm and the bottom sort of together. So to get prints on this piece of the sleeve now that's sticking out, I actually need to fold the two sleeves together in one fluid motion, and I fold that down. And I definitely would like some prints on this piece. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so I then added leaves onto that sleeve and I wrapped the bundle up really tightly. So I'm laying some sycamore leaves under the string as well, because I don't want to have a big area that's only got tie marks. I want to have plenty of color from the vegetation as well as from the dirty pot liquid in the pot. And at the beginning when I tie, I just go quickly to one end just to trap all the vegetation, and then I just come back and I tie. Each tie mark goes approximately 1 centimeter apart. I'm sorry, I thought I had that centimeter apart at the end of the video, but obviously not. So it's as simple as that. We'll just say this is the top. I've put leaves on one half and I've turned it over, and I put leaves on the other side. So for the question of leaves up here, for the question that was asked about how do you get prints on the underneath of the piece, as I roll it up, the underneath is going to make contact with the leaves on the top. So that's how you get prints on all sides of a garment. Now, I'm not sure if anybody wants to see that again. It wasn't very long. Or are you happy for me just to go straight on to the unrolling? Yeah, I think everyone's happy to go straight on. So here is, I hope. Okay, so here I am unrolling that very piece. And I can see already that there are prints, nice prints. And then the underneath of it is the black bit. The underneath, where my right hand is staying still, is where the darkest color is from the pot. And you can see as I'm opening it up and going towards the end with the copper pipe, as I roll the copper pipe off, can you see that there's a little modification of color at the top there? And really nice print under where the pipe was, but also there's some artificial lace at the top. There's the dark stripy bit, but that artificial lace did not take the color. I'm going to show you pictures of this afterwards as well. So now I'm just opening it up. I'm taking the leaves off. I'm seeing whether the back and the front gave much of a different print. And this now needs to have a really good wash with olive oil soap. until the water runs clean. And in fact, some of the stripes in the back have even come through to the front, and that's because this particular wool is a very fine wool. Some nice details from the back of a leaf there, but you're going to see them better in the finished images. One thing to remember, particularly if you are a larger lady, is don't put too big leaves where you're going to have your bust. I did that mistake the very first time I was printing fabric for sewing. Well, I put one big leaf and then I folded the fabric over, but that leaf meant that it was like I had a target where my bust area was. So just be careful about that. Okay, so that was wrapping up a piece, and that was unwrapping the piece. I'm just going to move on and discuss a little bit about eco printing to sew now, and then I'm going to go back and show you that finished garment. Actually, I'm not, sorry. It would be more logical to show you this now. Okay, so this is that very, very top after it was washed out and ironed. I iron all my eco-printed fabric on the hottest setting of the iron on the inside and the outside. And if you look at the, if you look at this, there's a pleasing design. It's symmetrical. That dark stripe down the middle is from the Dirty Pot liquid. And then the speckles on that lighter looking leaf, those speckles have come from a little gall. There was a little insect on the back of a leaf. So if you work with leaves that have had damage, maybe from age or from the wind or been damaged by insects, that can really add beautiful extra dimension to your eco prints. So do look for leaves with interesting characteristics. Then this is that close-up of that leaf. I mean, isn't it amazing how it's just got all that detail, and you can see at the bottom of the leaf as well, there have been a few nibbles out of it. I think that's really beautiful. And you can also see the artificial lace fabric at the neck. It didn't absorb any natural dye whatsoever. That is one thing that can prove a little bit of a problem if you are if you go for some of the cheaper clothing to upcycle. Sometimes there's lots of polyester thread that might have been sewn badly, and you would notice that more obviously maybe around the neckline or something. But that's nothing I can really help you with. But that's why I recommend, if you're going to actually sew, if you're going to eco print fabric to sew, I recommend sewing with a silk or a cotton thread. Then subsequently you can overprint, or you can dip it into an indigo vat, or you can naturally dye your piece and the thread will pick up the color. So when you are printing to sew, it's a little bit different, because I mean, you're printing fabric, the fabric is prepared in exactly the same way, etc., etc. But you can choose where the leaf placement would be. So I recommend that rather than cutting out pattern pieces, you cut out rectangles that are slightly larger than the pattern piece that you are going to need to cut. And the reason for that is your pieces may shrink slightly in the pot. The outside of the bundle may not be quite as nice. You know, the edges may be darker than you want. So I would always cut rectangles slightly larger than the pattern pieces I wanted to print. I find it really helpful to print yardage with a mirror image. And maybe actually I'll just get, no, maybe I won't. Well, in fact, I'm sitting on a cushion. I'll just take the cushion out from under my bottom, and I'll just, excuse me 1 second, just so you can see. So here is, this is a wool cushion, and there's a mirror image here. And you can see this is where it was getting near the tie marks. But if you have a mirror image on your fabric, that can really give you some very interesting options when with your pattern. You know, if you're making a jacket, for example, you could have the front, both sides on either side of a zip the same. You would just cut out that darker stripe from the middle. I recommend that you choose a simple sewing pattern. Keep the pattern simple and let your fabric, you know, show off the prints. It's fantastic to combine eco-printed fabric with plain, because when you do that, the plain fabric really shows off the eco-printed. And I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. And you might find it handy to cut your fabric with the prints with the correct side of the fabric facing up. Usually with commercial pattern designers, you know, you often cut things on the fold and you can't see the prints. But when I'm working with eco-printed fabric, I want to make sure that the most beautiful part of the fabric is facing upwards so I can see what I'm cutting. And as I mentioned before, I like sewing with the silk or the cotton thread. So here are some examples of garments that I have made, and they also the recommended designers that I really enjoy making pieces of theirs. So again, if you register for the bootcamp using the link below, I'm going to send the information about my favorite designers out to you afterwards, and I'll make sure that you have the websites for them. Twig and Tail is a marvelous business in New Zealand, and Lisa is fantastic, and she has a really strong ethos with using upcycled fabrics, all sorts of different things. But anyway, this particular jacket, I used a red waxed fabric for the outside. This is the men's Pathfinder vest, but I wanted something that was quite bulky that I could put on over a very warm woolen sweater for when I was walking in the winter, but when it wasn't raining. And the fabric that it's lined with, I mean, who says you can't have your beautiful eco-printed fabric inside instead of outside? I am so happy with this jacket, and I have worn it and worn it and worn it. And that fabric was a gift to me actually from Caroline. That fabric, she got it from a cooperative that was selling, I think, remnants and things. So it's a wool fabric. And if you look at it closely, you can see that on the right-hand side, on that side that's open, it's darker near the bottom and the prints are blacker. That is a piece of fabric that was in direct contact with the rusty metal pipe when I was printing it. What you can't see, because it's not open there, is that the lining on the other half of the front is a perfect mirror image of the lining on the side that is open. So I was really clear about how I wanted to print this piece for lining this jacket and how it would end up looking. I mean, who says the inside can't look beautiful? If you like that one, please give me a thumbs up in the comments. Shauna can see if you like it. I can't see from here. So then this is another design by Twig and Tail. And this is the Trailblazer vest. And in this case, I mean, each of their designs has multiple options, but I chose to do a zip in the front. I chose to have the back of the jacket sort of slightly flared and curved. I put inseam pockets. You can just see one peeping out there. And I actually lined this with eco-printed silk. It was silk that one of the few times I didn't get good prints on silk. I don't know why. And I had it in my stash and I was thinking of overprinting it, but actually it made brilliant lining for this, so I didn't. But this took quite a lot of ingenuity, because this one has got very fitted, I was going to say, I can't remember what they're called, but I think there's seams over the bust line. And this jacket has multiple pieces. So when I printed the fabric for that, I did loads of mirror image pieces so that on each side, each piece that I was using was the full mirror image of the other. And I was afraid, you know, if I wasn't careful, it would look too much, but actually I don't think it does. And I have just got so much wear out of this as well. I really love it. Now, another designer whose work I favor is Sarah Jolly. And Sarah is an architect and her designs are really great. Bags are her forte. And I first saw one of Sarah's designs and it was going to become available in a digital magazine. And so I just had to get it, and it was called a planetary backpack. It was designed for children, but I just loved it. There were more details and loads of options, but I stripped it back and I made it very, very simple. So for this particular backpack, I just made this printed with eucalyptus leaves, and it's a combination of some wool fabric, some lamb's wool actually that I had woven for me, and some plain fabric that I just had in my stash, small bits of fabric, and eco-printed silk noil, which you'll see the inside in a minute. But I decided, because I love upcycling, I had a wonderful backpack that the backpack itself had all torn. It had many, many years of wear. So I deconstructed it, and I actually used the backpack straps and handle and closure on this particular piece. And this is just looking into it. You can just see a selection of different fabrics there. Where I have my hand, those white stripes on that heavy silk noil, those are the time marks from that particular piece. And that's where, in fact, I say in the slide t-shirt yarn, but when I look at it closely now on my big screen, I can see that that wasn't t-shirt yarn. That was actually garden twine. And if you're looking on a large screen as well, you may be able to see a little bit of the texture where that string mark is. And then the little speckles underneath my name tag there on silk, those little speckles are from sprinkles of black tea on silk. And actually underneath my label, I can also see a couple of pieces of onion skin. So that's just an example of one of Sarah's bags that I have sewn. But here are 3 of them. So I just absolutely loved the planetary backpack. And then as soon as I started following Sarah online, and as soon as she had a call out for a pattern test, I applied and I got accepted. So I've done a couple of pattern tests for Sarah. And I have to say, no matter which pattern I have tried, they have all turned out beautifully. So at the family wedding this weekend, I actually used that larger bag that's in the background. It's eco-printed with Eucalyptus parvula. They used to be called parvifolia. In fact, all of them are eco-printed with parvifolia. But that bag at the back is great because it's big and it fits plenty of things for a overnight stay somewhere. So Sarah is a marvelous pattern designer. Another person who's wonderful, Els from, I'm not sure if it's Miss You Sue. I never know how to pronounce it, Patterns. She is a wonderful designer. And again, her shapes are quite simple, but she constructs them in a really interesting way. So you've got all these very interesting pattern pieces. And I think her designs go very well when you're combining eco-printed fabric and plain. And that particular one, it's that organic HEMP, and it's printed with the smoke bush. And so as well as incomplete stitches, twig and tail, and Missy Sue patterns, I can highly recommend Made It patterns. All of these, well, Style Arc is a little bigger, I think, but these are sort of independent pattern designers, modern pattern designers. They give clear, simple instructions that an idiot like me, who's really bad at sewing, can follow. Usually PDF files that you download, really good. So Made It patterns have wonderful kind of, tracksuit bottoms, sort of yoga pants, sweatshirts, hoodies. Sew House 7, oh my goodness, the toaster sweater. I've made so many of it. Wonderful. The assembly line, marvelous sewing patterns, more structured, beautiful. Tessuti, Style Arc, and the Sewing Revival. Those are my top picks. I have yet to meet a pattern written by one of them that was not easy to sew. And honestly, you might think when you see my sewing, I have more experience than I actually do. Okay, so I think that's quite a lot of the information now. It's probably time for some questions. And actually, just before I launch into questions and answers there, I'd love to invite some of you, if you've been enjoying this free bootcamp was a way of celebrating the launch of my EcoPrint and Wet Felt Club. It's something, it launched for founding members at the very beginning of February. And over the last 6 months, I've been building out the library with content and asking for feedback from the members. So if you would like to come back tomorrow, I will probably be answering more questions tomorrow anyway, but I'll be talking about felting and eco-printing. And if you're interested in joining me for more ongoing feedback, advice, mentoring, learning, come tomorrow, raise a glass. So I'll just say that there. And okay, so questions. I'm just going up here. Donna, do you ever use used black tea? Personally, Donna, no. There are, if it's used, loads of that natural dye from the tea is going to have come out. So you need to just remember, the materials in many ways are not and I don't mean this to sound dismissive of materials and supplies, they're not the most expensive part of anything. The most expensive part is your time, your knowledge. And if you don't give yourself the best opportunity to get good prints at the beginning or whenever, you're doing yourself a disservice. Eco-printing in the dirty pot, it's not a fast process. So if you use black tea that's already been used, I use the tea leaves dry. So if you use tea that's already been used, you're not going to get results from it. And that's actually a really interesting question, Donna. It's not one I've ever been asked before, but I do appreciate it. I do get asked, can you use leaves again? And I would say no. The only thing I would use again are the achiote seeds. So 1 second. Shauna, you can flash that up if you want to, because I can't see that. So yes, I'm going to continue to chat and give information, etc., and answer some questions for the rest of the week. And I will just send out for everybody who's registered, I will be just sending out an email as I have been doing and reminding you of the time. But there's a section towards the bottom of the email that you can opt out. So don't feel anybody has to be obliged to come tomorrow. But if you'd like to just learn a little bit about the club and what ongoing what's happening, I would love to see you, and I'd love to raise a glass of wine. I promised myself a couple of weeks ago, I would, aside from the wedding, I would wait until tomorrow to raise a glass of wine. And I really hope there will be some of you there tomorrow. So, okay. So now, 1 second now. That's a really interesting question. So, this hasn't been asked, but I would, I mean, you have a couple of things. You could just start again the following season. I personally don't think it would damage it to freeze it myself, but you would need to try. I think that's the best answer I can give you. I wouldn't have a problem myself with reusing it. Yeah. Yes, Sarah's bags really are beautiful. Okay. So 1 second now. So Joe, I'm not sure if you saw the video yesterday, but the video yesterday, I shared vegetation that definitely does give good prints. I've actually taught in Manitoba, and the thing, what I would say to everybody is, don't be too envious of what other people have. You will be able to identify leaves that grow well in your area. For example, I know that you probably have plenty of wild blackberry. There probably is rose. There will be plenty of vegetation that you can use, but you don't need to have a really wide variety. I tend to use the same leaves time after time. Yeah. Okay, so here's Carol. That pot just happens to be one of the pots that I make rust water in, Carol, and that has a lid on it. But for an eco printing pot, you definitely need a lid. And I have probably 60 pots here around the property. So some have lids and some don't. You just happened to see one that had a lid. And then, okay, in relation to what the membership club costs, it's less than the price of a cup of coffee per day, but it is an investment. There's either an annual or a monthly subscription, and all of that will be revealed tomorrow because it's not appropriate for tonight, and I don't want anybody to feel obliged to join me tomorrow. Obviously, I hope many of you do and just come along and have you raise the glass of wine. So yes, there will be, I'll be uploading the stream tonight, so you can access it, you know, on Facebook, on YouTube, or from your email. Okay, so what type of sewing machine? So I have a Janome straight stitcher, sort of a long arm straight stitcher. It's semi-professional. It's just phenomenal, and it goes through everything. I've also stitched leather with it and no problems whatsoever. So I cannot say enough about just a simple straight stitcher. Mary has a question. So if you over dye something you previously dyed in the dirty pot, will the original dye hold fast? There are a couple of things here, Mary. So it depends how you dyed it and how good your dyeing is. That would be one thing I would say. It depends what you do with it, because you might choose to actually, you might choose to use a barrier and dip a piece of fabric in your rust water and put that on top of your naturally dyed fabric, and that will change the color, but you'll get really interesting effects. So it really depends how well you've dyed it, but certainly I wouldn't hesitate to print something that I have dyed myself. But if I'm doing natural dyeing, unless it's with something like eucalyptus, which is substantive, I do mordant correctly. And if anybody's interested in clear and concise information about how to use mordants, I recommend Maiwa in Canada. They have an excellent information leaflet that you can use. Okay, so I'm going to just answer the next few questions that I see. And can I just ask people to stop dropping questions now, because I'm going to answer a couple more, share with you how to eco-print sculptural felt, if anybody's interested, and then I'll go back to questions again. So I mentioned yesterday that liquid amber has given me zero results. I do not get any prints from liquid amber whatsoever in the dirty pot. They give excellent prints, I think, with the mordant. Susan, all will be revealed tomorrow. Price, everything tomorrow. It's just not appropriate tonight because this is the free boot camp. So trust me, I won't be hiding the price, but it will be tomorrow. Have you any good links to eco printing on paper? Yes, Tracy, my own video. I have a video tutorial, step by step, how to eco print on paper. So subscribe to my channel and you can find that afterwards. Okay, golly, I see there are quite a lot of questions. So this is going to be my last one. I will come back to questions. So if you want a core that's not going to modify color, I would suggest that you probably use, you just wrap whatever metal or wooden dowel you have. I would just wrap that with some waxed or greaseproof paper to act as a barrier. Now, many people use plastic, or what we call cling film in Ireland, and you may know as saran wrap. I would much prefer never to put plastic in the pot and never to use plastic unless it was absolutely essential here on my house, or, you know, in my house and studio. So, but definitely just putting a barrier between whatever the core you're rolling up on will work perfectly. Okay, I'm not looking at comments again now, because what I would like to do is just share a few slides of the step-by-step process of printing a little felt bag, but this could equally be a felt vessel, it could be a felt hat. Everything is exactly the same. And if you're a felt maker and you like felting, just give me a thumbs up, and Shauna will be able to monitor that. Okay, so here goes. So what I've done is I've felted this bag, and I soaked it overnight in plain water, and then I sprinkled it with malt vinegar. You can see the brown vinegar there on the table. So the important thing if you're going to print sculptural felt is, well, I think it's important. I felt my pieces until they are either 100% felted or about 99%. I don't stop at 80 or 90%. I get them and I shape them. I do the almost final shaping, so that they look how I want them to look. And then I soak them overnight in water, and then I totally flatten them again. So that's really important to know. I do finish them. I mean, I could just rinse them and I could dry them and they're totally finished. So what you're seeing here is this little bag that would have been a bit more three-dimensional. And if I was printing a vessel, it would have been significantly more three-dimensional. So I've squashed it flat. It's sprinkled with vinegar. And for this, I am just using onion skins. I cannot recommend enough, if you are new to eco printing, you start with onion skins. They work brilliantly. So next, I'm rolling it up, and I'm rolling it up firmly. And in this case, I wanted to show that you didn't have to roll it up on itself, on a pipe. So there's no modification of color from a pipe with this bag. And can you see I'm adding one eucalyptus leaf that has nibbles out of it? I'm just adding that. That's going to be going under the string mark, under the string. I've now tied it really tightly. I added a second eucalyptus leaf, and I'm cutting a length of twine from where the knot is on the bundle just up to my shoulder. And again, if you want to review the eco printing process from start to finish, day one of the boot camp is what I recommend you watch. Okay. And I also made a couple of felt cords, because this is a really, really, really simple felt bag. In fact, the full instructions for this are in the club anyway, but this was actually something that I taught during lockdown before the club started. So these are just little felt cords. And again, I have a felt cord tutorial, I think, on YouTube. So you can find that in my wet felting playlist. And I've just kind of folded them back on themselves a couple of times and added some onion skins. Okay, so then I will remove that from the stream. And then here is that piece after it had been eco printed in the dirty pot. So as I say, there was no pipe to roll this up on. So all the dark color you're seeing, that's the color that is from the pot liquid. And look how vibrant the prints are there. That's the side, that's the first side that I was laying the vegetation on, but it's not my favorite side. You can also see that the background color is still very white. It's darker at the edges because that's from the pot liquid, but the background color is white. This is my favorite side. So on this side, you've got the dark and drama, that dramatic thing from the time marks. But I want you to notice something here, and I'm going to flash back to the first picture. Do you see that there's a curve there at the bottom where you've got the onion skins and it's white, and then above that there is the area with the time marks? That curve is happening. You can see here where I am rolling it up. That curve is echoing the curve there that you can see my left hand, which is the right one in the image, where my left hand is holding it. That curve is what is giving that beautiful shape there. And that's one of the reasons I prefer to eco-print rectangular pieces of fabric when I'm going to be sewing. Because if I have an odd shape, you're going to get the tie marks are going to be somewhere that you may not want them on a piece of fabric for a garment. Whereas when you are eco-printing a piece of felt, make a feature of those tie marks, which is what I've done here. And you couldn't see any embellishing fibers on that, but once the bag was washed out and actually I would maybe have steamed it, I would have shaped it again, you can see it doesn't look that like it's not as black, but you can just see it's beautiful. You can see little bits of white as well from the embellishing fiber. So that did have embellishing fiber. The bag is now 3-dimensional. And if it was a vessel, I would put my hand in and I would really push it out and I would spend time shaping it. That bag is really, really handy if I go somewhere and I just need something to put a phone in and, you know, I want to look slightly smarter than I usually do. Okay, so I'm going to remove that from the stream now. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to throw it open for questions again. It's already 7:15. And I really, really hope you have enjoyed the information that I've shared during the 3 bootcamp videos. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me. And I'm going to go back and answer the final questions. I think there may be quite a few by the look of it here. So just give me a second because it takes me a minute to go down through them. So Deborah saying, is it difficult to find eucalyptus in Miami? You're going to have access to really great vegetation, Deborah. I think Casarina grows there. You can get eucalyptus from most of the florists, Trader Joe's, and also I suspect there will be eucalyptus trees growing there. But I do encourage people to try and use vegetation that grows locally to them as well. But certainly florists, you'll be able to get the eucalyptus from. Do you dip protein fiber and cellulose fiber in baking soda before washing out? I only neutralize in bicarbonate of soda or baking soda if the fabric itself has made direct contact with iron or rusty metal. So if I roll on a copper pipe, I don't use the bicarbonate of soda. And if I have plenty of rusty metal in the pot, I don't use the bicarbonate of soda. I only use it where the fabric makes direct contact with the fabric and the iron. Okay. So, Carol Ann, you're the only person that can judge this. You need, if you have, Carol Ann's question is, she's saying she only has an electric plate for heating a pot. Is this okay, or should she find something else? And if you can bring your pot liquid to a boil where it is bubbling, not just a little bit of steam, where it's actually bubbling, the surface is bubbling, Carol Ann, and you can hold it at that temperature for several hours, then your hot plate will be perfect. I have a little hot plate that I would use for natural dyeing, but it doesn't get the temperature hot enough for eco printing. So only you will be able to know that yourself. Mary has a question. Do you know if you have an allergy to eucalyptus, it lingers on the washed fabric? Of course, you'd need to be careful during the dyeing process. I cannot comment on that, but if somebody has an allergy to a particular leaf, I recommend you don't use it. That would be my gut. That would be what I would say if you are saying you are allergic to it. I don't know in relation to it afterwards, but certainly there have been multiple discussions. Whoops, got it. I nearly fell off the box I'm sitting on today. My regular stool, because I've been on the computer so much preparing this for everybody, my bottom is quite, it's not so comfortable on the regular stool, so I'm on a box. Sorry about that. Definitely, if you're eco printing in the dirty pot and you wash things out, I'm not concerned about the rusty metal or anything, you know, with people and with health. I would say it's probably okay with eucalyptus leaves, but if somebody has an allergy, I clearly would not be using that. I wouldn't use that eucalyptus if you have an allergy, Mary, no. Yeah. Well, the thing about trousers is trousers are actually surprisingly easy to fold. It's more difficult to get the prints in pleasing places. But with trousers, I would lay them on the table. I would put leaves on one leg. I would fold the other leg on top of it. I would lay more leaves. I would roll from the bottom up to the waist and the crotch area. Usually, yeah. So that's that. Oh, somebody is leaving. Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Marion, excellent question. So Marion is saying, as a complete beginner, she feels somewhat overwhelmed. How would you suggest I start? That is a really fantastic question, Marion. And I would suggest you start with the absolute basics. You go back to bootcamp video 1. I also have other bootcamp videos as well. We had a tech issue behind the scenes on day 1, and we were getting some trolls leaving comments that we couldn't moderate very well. So I wasn't quite as concise as I would have liked to be, or I felt I wasn't. But I would say video 1, Marion, and don't worry about video 2 or video 3. Go back to video 1 and have a few successful eco-printing sessions. You know, get your pot set up, get some nice fabric. It could be an old piece of, woolen blanket or something. Start with wool or silk, keep it simple, try onion skins and move on from there. That is what I would recommend. And I'm not surprised you feel overwhelmed, because from the question perspective, we have a lot of questions coming in from people with different experience and coming from different areas. But the basics are what I would start with. I also have a small video about making your dirty pot. So if you didn't want to watch the whole bootcamp video again, you could go to the dirty pot video. And there are other videos in the playlist about eco-printing and wet felting without powdered mordants that you should find helpful. Stick to the basics, and if you have a question, just shoot it off to me. Okay. Oh, great. Tracy's coming tomorrow with the glass. Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I'll send a link for tomorrow. Okay. Donna has a question about eco-printing on leather. I highly recommend that you buy an online tutorial for printing on leather. And yes, Taria Kwong, Linda Illuminardi, just search online on Etsy and you will get good tutorials for eco-printing on leather. It's not something that I am doing here. I do eco-print on leather, but it's definitely not something I'm teaching here. I may go through some of it with the club later this year. This is really interesting. Tammy is a club member, actually, and Tammy is saying she gets great prints with liquid amber, and she's in California. Thanks for putting that up, Tammy, because I know other people get good prints. I get none here in Ireland whatsoever, not whatsoever. Claire, rereading your tutorial, gathering supplies, waiting for the pot to be delivered. Oh my, you are going to have such fun, Claire. I really wish I could be a fly on your shoulder when you open your first bundles. It's all ahead of you, so have a fantastic time. So let me just keep going. Yeah, and yes, Mariette, she would like to print on goat's leather. I mean, you can print in the dirty pot, but I just think if you have experience with leather, by all means, go ahead. But I do think it's very helpful to have a good tutorial before you eco-print on leather. I'm just scrolling down. Oh, plenty of felters. Yeah, great to see the felters. Yeah, thank you for coming in. Okay, Bree is asking, okay, I'm going to drop that in the comment, M-A-I-W-A. It's Maiwa, Bree, MAIWA, and they have wonderful free information. They're a fantastic supply store as well, but they have very good information about Mordants and natural things. Oh, brilliant. Thanks so much, Walter. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so white vinegar can be difficult to find here in Ireland at a good price locally. It's really bizarre. Mine was a malt vinegar. It's what they sell to go with chips, fish and chips, which is a more English thing. But anyway, so it was a malt vinegar and it looked brown, but I use any kind of vinegar. The color of the vinegar will not have any effect on the outcome. Each vinegar works very, easily. Okay, so Lisa's a question about the large eucalyptus leaf. I'm afraid I cannot tell you because the greenkeeper at a golf club gave me the trees and he didn't know the name of them either. But a tree that I have that prints very well with long leaves is Eucalyptus nitens, and it prints well for me and it has long leaves. Okay, so here we go. The seeds. Yeah, okay. I'm going to write this as a comment. The plant is called, hang on. I'm going to just post that comment, Cecile, and then Shauna, could you pop that up on screen for me, please? Thank you. So the plant itself is called achiote, and the seeds, they usually call them annatto. It's what gives red food coloring. It creates red dye for lipstick, and the seeds are used in Mexican cooking. So achiote seeds give really fabulous prints. They're a small seed. They give a round punctuation of red or orange color. They're really, really beautiful. And I find that they will work more than one time. It's the only thing that I use that will work more than one time. Okay, thanks for popping that up, Shauna. Oh, Tammy, thanks so much. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm really looking forward to having a lot more time to print now that the library for the members club is pretty much totally complete. Then I'll be able to print along with you almost every week. So it's going to be just so fantastic. Thanks so much. It's really great seeing all these messages. Yeah, Claire, it's interesting. Unless you strip it back to the basics, you will not get good results. And so many people, like, they just go out and they gather all the vegetation in their garden and they keep thinking it will print. Without Mordants, the powdered Mordants, it won't. And it's just, when you have a couple of bad experiences, it's just hard to get going again. So I'm just coming down here. Oh yeah, and this is wonderful. Marianne, felt is the best substrate to print on. It's just fantastic. Really, really, really fantastic. So yeah, what can I say? I love it. I'm going down through the cons. These are really, thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. I will look at them again afterwards. Oh, wow, Lisa, your birthday tomorrow. Maybe I'll see you later in the week. I'm going to be live every day this week just because of the membership launch as well. And I'll be answering questions later in the week and, you know, chatting to you. So feel free. Happy birthday, Lisa. Fantastic to see you. It's your birthday. Oh, yes. If you have an aha moment, if there's something that really struck a chord with you today, please drop it in as a comment. Shauna and I will be reviewing everything from every day of the bootcamp in another couple of weeks once the membership launch and we've new members in the club, and it will just give us more information about what content to share in the future and the sort of questions you have. So thank you. So now I'm going to come back. I'm going to answer all the rest of the questions that I can see. And if you have a question, don't forget, put question marks in the front and behind. So Mary is asking, how much processing time does Cotinus or smoke bush need? I would say between anywhere the range between 2 and 2.5 hours, but actually usually between 2 hours and 2 hours and 15 minutes, you get wonderful prints. The older leaves can stand, you know, up to 2.5 hours for very good prints. But if you have really very fine young leaves, they give excellent prints, but they release the dye quicker in the case of smoke bush. I don't recommend young leaves for every vegetation. So I'd say 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yep, great question, Tricia. Absolutely. So if you're printing watercolor paper, what I always do is I put my fabric bundles in the pot first, and then if you want to print paper, I would put the paper in last, and I give the paper approximately 2 hours and the fabric usually a bit longer. Okay. Margaret has a question. What makes defined edges in the dirty pot? On silk, I have a perfect print even without mordants. On cotton, some prints are perfect, others are diffused. I still do not know why. I would ask you the question, Margaret. I don't exactly know. Have you been eco-printing in the dirty pot exactly the same way as I would? But if you're finding that on cotton, your prints are very diffused, that would suggest to me that your fabric is too wet when you're laying the vegetation out. And if it's too wet, what happens is the natural dye from the leaf almost bleeds into the fabric and it becomes more diffused, if that's the correct term. But I would say that your fabric may be too wet. I would also say, I mean, when I'm eco-printing on cotton, my prints are not diffused. And let me just give me 1 second. I'll just see if I can bring up from yesterday, if I could find that photograph of Paul in his t-shirt. I'm not sure that I can. Just give me 1 second to flip through these slides. I can't remember. Yeah, so this is cotton. I don't print on cotton very often because I far prefer linen myself, but this is cotton. Paul came to me for a workshop, and can you see that the prints are very crisp on that? So it's probably a combination of vegetation and the fact that you have your fabric is too wet. That would be my gut feeling. And I might as well just slip through here. This is Rose Bay Willow Herb, and that's on linen. And why don't I just go through linen trousers with Rose Bay Willow Herb and blackberry leaves. And that's the organic HEMP with the smoke bush leaves. And there they are again. So I would just say, be careful that maybe your fabric is too wet. So the whole idea of using the baking soda is to neutralize the effect of the rusty metal. And unless you use too much, you get no modification of color. I have found on onion skin pieces, if somebody puts too much in, they can shift the colors towards slightly more olivey green color. But in general, the baking soda wash, if you just use a small amount, it doesn't change the color of the prints whatsoever, but it just prevents the rusty metal where it was in contact with the fabric deteriorating, making the fabric weaker over time. Then how do you know the processing time for different types of vegetation? That is all from trial and error, and I'm giving you the benefit of my experience. But most softer leaves in the dirty pot, they give their best prints at let's say if we had to take a soft leaf, let's just say 2 hours and 15 minutes. I usually would say 2.5 hours, but sometimes a little bit less. So let's just say 2 hours and 15 minutes. And eucalyptus leaves give their best prints from 3 to 5 hours. Many do not release their red until 5 hours. That's why I've got another video with information about red giving eucalyptus, because that way then you can have a list of ones that give good stuff. Oh, Tammy, that's fantastic, Tammy. I'll raise my glass to you. Here's a question from Ava. And she's saying, so it's Shilpi from India. Oh, Ava Creation is the name of your company. Hi. So if I'm steaming, I would steam for the same length of time as I would process in the pot, and sometimes I would give it a little bit longer. It would depend on the fabric, Shilpi, and it would depend on what vegetation I was using. If I am doing tannin and iron reactions, which I'm not discussing here now, but I do them without mordanting the fabric beforehand. If I'm doing tannin and iron reactions actually and steaming, I find 1 hour and 20 minutes. Or if I was steaming something with a mordant, 1 hour and 20 minutes. But anything in the dirty pot without mordants, it needs the same length of time or longer than if it was going to be submerged. Donna has a question about leather that I have. I'm sorry, Donna, I can't even flash that up on the screen because I don't even know what you're asking me. I don't have loads of experience with leather, and I can't answer your question. So does Solidago or goldenrod print well? It's a wonderful natural dyer, and I think I tried it once and I got no prints. I certainly wouldn't, it wouldn't be something I would be trying. Most of the good plants that dye very well don't give good eco prints, so I wouldn't be trying it. I mean, unless I had plenty in my garden and I had loads of time. Okay, I'm just going down. So the membership, I will be going through all that tomorrow and give you a little look at the library. And I don't want to talk about the stuff because it's more about how the membership club can help you and how I can help you. But it's on Kajabi. It's hosted on Kajabi, and we also have a private Facebook group. Tammy is a member of that. And there may well be other members here, but I can't see all the comments as they go by. So we have a private Facebook group, which is really lively, and everybody is really supportive of each other. It's a safe space to share all your successes, your failures, to ask for questions. And then we have a huge library of content on Kajabi. So, oh, this is really interesting. Mariette is saying, my aha moment was the use of damaged leaves and the print you get. Thank you so much, because I love that myself. I'm always looking for leaves that have had a little bit of a nibble out of them. So, yeah. Okay, so I need to hide that one. Don't forget, if you have a question, I'll take a few more. Try and put 3 question marks at the front and the back, because then Shauna can find them. So Isabella is saying she's in the UK. Where does she buy her dirty pot? Isabella, you just want a large aluminium pot. All the information about that is in video 1. And I would just recommend ask your friends. Most people have an old stock pot that they don't use. And I got some of my first pots in secondhand, you know, scrap yards or salvage yards, and from people who donated them to me. Oh my goodness. Deborah is saying white vinegar, 32p a bottle from Tesco in the UK. Thanks for sharing that. Oh, somebody who needle felts and wet felts. Well, eco printing would be good for both of those. For the dirty pot, can I use aluminium clad stainless steel farberware? I've never heard of it, but you could try it, but I've never heard of it. So I don't know is the answer, but anything with any amount of aluminium is better than no aluminium. Okay. So let me see. Jimmy's asking, don't people in the UK preserve pickles, etc., with vinegar? Yes, they do, but I don't live in the UK. And we also do pickle. I'm here in Southern Ireland. We do pickle with vinegar as well, but I'm in a very, very rural location, and it just happens to be something that's really expensive here. Okay, this is really nice seeing all these comments. Thank you all so much. It's really great. Thank you so much. Gosh, we have a good few Leslies here. Oh, really interesting question. Valerie is asking, can you knit and felt an item, then eco print it? Absolutely. You can, absolutely. You can weave something and you can print your own weaving. So absolutely, you can. So Linda's asking, am I going to tell you about the club tomorrow? The focus tomorrow is going to be about the club, and you know, people can ask questions, or how I can help you, or how you can help me, or whatever. We'll just discuss how, not how you can help me, but if you're a member of the club, you can let me know what you're interested in, etc., etc. But that will all be tomorrow. Oh, here's a great one. Good. Wow, 2:36 a.m. Carol. Wow. Trisha. Wow. Okay. So Russ is asking, what knots do you use? So Russ, I'm assuming you mean the knot when I'm tying the bundle. So when I'm rolling a bundle up, when I do that first bit of string, I use a surgeon's knot. Shona, could you just put surgeon's knot in the comments there, please? And the surgeon's knot is one that you just wrap the thread twice on itself, sort of, let's say. But there are great tutorials on YouTube for the surgeon's knot. And the reason I use that is somebody in America told me about it. It's very, very easy to open it afterwards, but you don't have to cut the string and risk damaging your fabric. So I use that knot first, and it holds it very tightly. Then I go quickly up the length of the bundle, and then I come back down with the string about 1 centimeter apart, and then I tie it really tightly. So when I tie it on the outside, I do the kind of, you know, that first bit of a knot if you were tying a shoe. Don't know what the knot is called, and then I repeat that. So it's just tied, but I don't do multiple knots. I try just doing a few or two, just 2 knots. Yeah. Okay. Making garments, haven't for many, many years. Deborah, I didn't want to sew whatsoever, but believe me, when you start using your own eco-printed fabric in garments, I mean, I was eco-printing for probably 6 years before I did. It's great. So I tackled my demons, and I realized it was the fact that I couldn't understand the language that the traditional designers use. But once I found those indie designers, and it's in plain, simple, straightforward English, I have no problems. Okay. God, there are still quite a few comments coming in. So how about combining different leaves? Should they all have the same cooking time? Very good question. So if I'm combining blackberry leaves and eucalyptus leaves, I would make sure that I used one of the eucalyptus varieties on that I recommend in that eucalyptus video. And they give good prints after 2.5 hours. And the blackberry leaves will be fine up to 2.5 hours. But if it was a leaf that needed 4 to 5 hours, I would never combine it with the blackberry. So that is something that you definitely need to consider. You need to consider how long things need in the pot. And onion skins can take a long or a short boiling time. So they're fine. And no, I was facilitating with my good friend Meredith Smith. We were facilitating a retreat at Lake Tahoe, and somebody had wonderful eco prints with rhubarb and on paper without Mordants, but they were amazing. And when I came home, I bought some rhubarb and I tried experimenting and using it for different things. I didn't get anything with it at all, and so I don't use it for a Mordant either. Carol is saying that she has some parachute silk. I think it will be fantastic, Carol, and what a wonderful thing to do with it. It definitely won't be too fine. What will happen is you're going to get shadow printing, and that's very beautiful by itself. And that's where leaves will repeat print down the length. I would just say go for it. I think that's a lovely idea, and I'd love to see what you do, Carol. So if you're a member of, I'm just going to flash it up on the screen. I have a public Facebook group, and it's just my name at the end of the thing. So if you would like to join that group, that's somewhere that we can share things. Not done with Mordants, done in the dirty pot. And then if you're interested, if you've enjoyed the boot camp and you are interested, I do have an ebook. It's $29 US, but I think it contains loads of information and it's very structured. And so that might be something that would interest you. I'm just going back to the comments. So Darlene, I iron my prints after they come out of the washing machine when they're damp. I find that if you let the fabric dry, you're much more likely to get creases in it. So I always wash it when they are damp, or iron it when they are damp. So this question is about the dirty pot liquid. So just to clarify, do you take off liquid from your dirty pot to the plastic bucket after each eco dyeing session? Personally, no, I don't have to do that because my pots have thick walls. But if you have just a home, you know, a kitchen pot or something with a lighter wall, it's a good idea. Otherwise, you may get holes in it. I have a few pots that I have put holes in because I left the liquid in. So I'd say, yeah. And then in relation to the heat source, you need to go back to video 1 for all that information about the basics. My favorite heat sources are gas. So that would either be propane or butane, depending on where I am. And it would be gas or wood fired. Oh, thanks for all the nice comments coming in about the book. Thank you very much. Okay, now, see, Tara is saying that Tara used pomegranate leaves in the dirty pot and they were amazing. I don't know, was that for printing or not? I don't have access to pomegranate leaves, but I do know that, you know, the tannin from the rind of the pomegranate is a wonderful tannin. So that's interesting. I've never had access to pomegranate leaves, but thank you for sharing that. And Lavelle is asking how thick. That's like asking how long is a piece of string. What I call thick, you may not call thick. The walls of my pot would be quarter of an inch thick. No, not quarter of an inch, maybe nearly quarter of an inch. My pots have thick walls. Some of my pots have much thicker walls than that. These are big, serious old pots that would have been used, some of them on a farm or somewhere like that. They're really, really, really thick. So you need to just use your head. I'm not saying do take the liquid out, but I am saying you run the risk of putting a hole in your pot if you don't take it out. So, oh yeah, it's fantastic, Carol. You're going to have just great fun. Okay, so 1.5. I think I would take it out. I think I would take it out. Look, I think that's it for tonight, folks. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed these 3 days. And I know that some people will be watching on the replay. So by all means, ask me comments as a question over on YouTube afterwards. And I will be able to I will be able to answer them there. And oh wow, look at these aha moments. Shadow printing, cooking time, how to fold garments. Yep, this is fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And I actually see that Annie has a question now about boot camps. And Annie is asking, do you have a boot camp for felting? If you look back, Annie, through my videos on YouTube, if you're subscribed to the channel and you go back, the last boot camp at the beginning of February, that was about eco printing and wet felting. But I don't have a specific boot camp for wet felting because the majority of my followers are either eco printers or they wet felt and eco print. So I don't have one just about felting, but the eco print and wet felt club, there's loads of learning in relation to felting in the club, but that's all for tomorrow. So I haven't had just a felting boot camp. So look, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Lovely comments coming in. Thanks a million. I need a few more days in my week, more than a few more hours in my day. This is just fantastic. And in Brazil, if you have teak leaves, try teak leaves because they are just absolutely brilliant. Okay, folks, that is it. I cannot believe it has been 1 hour and 48 minutes already. So thank you so much. And I look forward to welcoming some of you tomorrow to continue the fun for the week. I'll be raising a glass of wine tomorrow, but it's a cold brewed iced tea here today, unsweetened. So thank you all very much. Over and out from Clasheen, and I look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow. Bye, and happy eco printing.